All right, everybody. Today we are talking about Kadomon or Kadomon, a new monster taming auto battler just released on Steam on March 25th. This game was only like $11, or I think it came out to 13 Canadian dollars after taxes for me. It's really cool. It's like a mix of a monster tamer and an auto battler like TFT. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm a fan of both Pokemon and auto battlers like TFT, so this game kind of hits home for me, but I still think for an indie and for only $11, it is pretty legit. Just like in Pokemon, you can sort of select a starter here, fire, water, grass, the classic stuff, and it kind of moves through like a roguelike map. There's not much of a story to this game outside of the lore you get with the individual mons. Each of them have a special ability, typing, and a certain role they play in battle. Pretty interesting if you're into the auto battler genre. In my playthrough, I decided to go with the water ice type Kreese as my starter. It's kind of bulky from my understand and supports other allies by granting them additional defense. Seems to be a lot to screw around with in this game, a lot of different strategies that could work. There's also a full type chart, just like in Pokemon, so you gain advantages for optimizing that way. Now, the battling is where this game, or the combat, I should say, is where this game is either going to hit home for you or completely lose you. Like I said, it is an auto battler like Teamfight Tactics or any similar game. You have a party of 4, and you kind of choose to line them up in order back to front. So the front units are tankier, and the back units typically do more damage. From what I've seen, like I said, each mon has its unique ability and typing, which creates a lot of strategy and gets pretty interesting. In the video I'm showcasing here, it seems pretty simple. There are 3 different speeds you can put the battle on to get your bearings. A lot going on on the screen all at the same time, and it can get a little confusing sometimes. But I will say, as you get further into the game, there are some pretty interesting mini bosses and bosses to really flex the strategies. There's also both held items and consumable items that you purchase from a shop. And they have some really interesting effects. Again, just sort of like strategy overload, but the game hasn't been too difficult for me yet, but also not that easy. The graphics and animation are pretty minimal, but I do like the charm of some of the monsters in terms of character design. But you'll see, like, mostly it's just like a big, defense symbol popping up, or like a big rain droplet dropping down on the opposing side's mon. And like I said, a lot going on the screen, a lot of different status effects happening, especially when you speed the game up. I didn't really get a hang on this yet, I'll be honest. I'm about an hour in, but still fun. Again, if you're into the genre, it's not that much different than what you'd see in a typical TFT match. Just dumbed down a little bit in one sense, and also really confusing in another sense. But yeah, that's the combat. Again, not much going on in the story here. It is presented like a roguelite where you do specific runs and you have pathways down to ultimately a mega boss with different paths you can choose along the way, some random mystery events and mini bosses, as well as opportunities to recruit more Kadomon. The random events are extremely straightforward. It's usually just an image and a paragraph with some lore where you make one of 2 decisions, at least from what I've seen so far. They can end up with you joining a battle, or getting an item, or recruiting a Kadomon of your own. Pretty interesting. And then I'd say the bulk of the strategy really happens on this screen here, which is the shop/party menu. You do have a box of 6. You can release Kadomon for extra experience if your box is full, but you cannot have more than the 10 total. As well as you have held items and consumable items like I mentioned earlier, and then your party of 4, which you can switch up before any battle. In this shop, you after every battle, you have the ability to purchase new Kadomon or additional experience for a Kadomon that is listed in the shop, as well as, again, consumable and held items. If you beat mini bosses, you can acquire tickets, which allow you to restock the shop once per ticket. This is a pretty interesting system, just like any roguelike. It's like a pause in the action to build your squad properly, and I think they do it pretty well. Overall, I don't think this game is necessarily going to blow a lot of people away, but like I said, for me, it hits a very specific niche that I've been wanting, and for the price, I think it's pretty good value, and it makes a welcome addition to the Monster Taming collection that is now out there and growing rapidly. If I had to give it a number, I'd probably at this point give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. It is missing a lot of pizzazz, I guess you could say, and during the combat, for me in particular, somebody who's used to both of these genres, it does get quite chaotic when you're trying to figure out exactly what is happening. I'm sure I'll warm up to that, but with each mon having a unique ability and all these different status effects, some of the mons have 3 typings, maybe even more as you get further into the game, so there is a lot to process here, and I don't think the game does the best job at visually communicating that, especially during combat. There's a lot of hovering over different status effects to figure out what's going on, things like that. But yeah, overall, I just thought I'd bring this some attention. I always like seeing new monster taming games out in the wild, especially on Steam, where a lot of people can play this on PC. I'm sure it is not that demanding on the old computer. So thank you for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you've downloaded it, if you're interested, or, you know, if you hate it. Just let me know. That's it from me. Peace.